Welcome to the Expert Insights session of the BioStock Life Science Spring Summit, where we take a closer look at the big pharma perspective on partnering. Many small companies in the life science area are looking to strike a partnership. This could be through closing a licensing deal, selling a specific project, or even being acquired in an M&A transaction. All of this could be part of a general business model for the company. It could also be a preferred exit strategy for investors in the company. But how does a company become an attractive target for potential big pharma sharks looking for M&A opportunities? And once a deal is done, what happens after that? To answer these questions and a lot more, we've invited Gran, who has loads of experience within M&A in big pharma and is currently at Novo Nordisk working as Associate Director, Corporate Integrations. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you.
It's so nice to have you here.
It's nice to be here.
Could you give us a short summary of your background and your current role at Novo Nordisk?
Sure. Currently, I'm in corporate integrations. And before that, I spent nearly I would say now nearly a decade in total in partnering. So meaning both collaborations as well as mergers and acquisitions and a little bit of alliance management in between for big pharma. And I've also spent a number of years in pharmaceutical product or drug launches, really looking at or working with what happens when you reach the other end of the funnel with a drug and it finally comes out and begins to hopefully make a patient impact. And before that, and this is really where my heart is, I was a research scientist. I worked in academia for nearly a decade in biomedical research.
How much of that experience as a scientist works into the partnership environment that you're in now?
Quite a bit. It's definitely a business environment where I have spent well over 10 years. But it helps when I'm working in a high science-focused, innovation, technology-focused environment. It helps to more quickly dive deeper into what is it that we're looking at? What is the possible impact that this innovation can have? What's the science behind it? And also really understanding it in a way that hopefully helps to ask the right questions, to evaluate opportunities, look at potential risks and de-risking plans, and then of course really also understanding how to best guide the teams to develop a plan to work together in the future.
Well, you've talked about your previous roles, and my curiosity is, how do you compare those previous pre-deal business development roles with your current role in post-merger partnerships?
They're siblings, I would say. Deal making is a sprint. Integration is a marathon, if you look at it from the acquiring partners side. And also, if you look at it from the side of usually then the smaller party, the biotech or the medtech company, deal making, it depends if it's a partnership. It can be a massive change for a small company, or it could just be an exciting project. Whereas if you're being acquired, while it might be one thing in the line of many for a big pharma company, of course, from a smaller company point of view, it is transformational. And in the space of partnering, I've of course had a broader role. So I looked both in search and evaluation. I worked as a scout for innovations. I have really led negotiations and due diligence for partnerships, and then also managed a couple of partnerships. But now in my current role, I'm really focused on the one kind of deal, which is the company acquisition, a full company acquisition, and how you then make both parts come together in the least disruptive way possible to create future value.
Well, you mentioned search and evaluation and your previous roles there. I'm curious to know, what did you look for specifically in a potential target when you were scouting?
Always compelling science first. And of course, I would not be the expert, but having a basic training in what is it that is that my company's experts are looking for. It helps to make the first assessment. And then it's really about how, if it's a scientific discovery, is the translation towards an innovation, so a real future patient impact, is that feasible? And then I would look at, well, where does this team want to take it that I'm talking to right now? What do they believe is the right way? What do they see as the best opportunity? And how do they see that they need help from a partner? Scalability. It's one thing to have a great idea and make a small number of products for one country. It's a whole different game if you're looking at the global market, which is, of course, what big companies would like to look at.
Yeah, sure. Well, and mergers often end with rather poor outcomes. What do you see in a company that would make you hopeful for a successful integration?
Well, yes, it's true. And I think there's a number floating around that around 70% of M&As do not capitalize or bring in the full expected value. And yet M&As happen all the time. So there's a reason for that. I would say, of course, the ground rule is if we like to think that we approach with expecting success from our own actions as well, and our decisions and choices. So if we would not be hopeful for an integration, then we should not acquire the company. And those could be, of course, many reasons. A typical one would be the rationale is fuzzy. It's unclear. If management teams cannot explain to their investors or their employees why it's the greatest idea in the world that these two companies come together, then if that cannot be intuitive and easily understood by anyone, then that would be a warning sign. Sure. Of course, culture as well. People, M&A, it's not about just buying tangible assets like houses and labs and equipment and IP. It's also as much usually convincing humans that they should stay with us and continue to work with us. So that would be another thing that we'd look at.
And that brings me to my next question, actually, is how do you deal with these issues like company culture differences or a flight of talent, for example? How do you deal with these issues specifically?
Well, I like to say better every time and probably never as good as we desire to. I think that's probably true for every big company. As I said, it really comes down to explaining and creating an easily understood rationale for why this is a great idea. But then, of course, also retention risk you mentioned, talent flight. Why does that happen? It could happen. Usually it doesn't happen because of money. Yes, the money needs to be right, but we need to, as a partner, it's our responsibility then as the new owner to also, together with the team of the acquired company, make sure that we shape a new reason for why they should show up at work, what they should chase for, what's the common goal. And actually one of my key projects right now is in culture integration. So I'm looking at ways of designing a process and a toolbox for how we can more mindfully, as a big pharma partner, manage that journey of culture, meeting another culture, and managing that change in a way that we're not stepping into cultural empirism as one big company, but also really making it work for both parties. That's very interesting, actually. Going into M&A strategy specifically, big pharma are busy as ever buying up assets to boost their own pipelines, not least Novo Nordisk, which made billion-dollar acquisitions in 2021 with Dicerna and in 2022 with Forma Therapeutics. Would you say that Novo is putting more
efforts into partnering with external innovators?
Yes, for sure. We're known for being one of the leaders in the field of diabetes for a long, long time. In the recent years, we've also expanded into the broader cardiometabolic disease scope. And of course, also expanded our footprint in rare diseases. And being able to access and really work with the best of the best, wherever that can be found in the world. That's what we want to do. And company acquisitions it's just one form, right? It's ultimately two partners coming together in a way that just makes the sum of the parts so much bigger. So for sure, that's what we are also, what you're seeing that we're already doing, I hope.
Well, you partly answered this next question, which is, do you still keep a keener eye on the Nordic markets, or do you find other markets more interesting?
Well, actually, if you look at the two recent acquisitions that you mentioned, and also other partnerships that have been announced in the past couple of years, they're all over the place. The acquisitions were in the US, so we are impartial to geography, I would say. We really go where the brightest minds are and where the best innovation can be found, and that includes the whole globe.
Speaking more broadly within Big Pharma, how do you approach the question of whether to build in-house capabilities versus acquiring those capabilities externally?
It comes down to a couple of factors. One is strategy. What is it that we're looking to do and move towards, and why? The second one is time. Do we have the time to build that in-house? And the third one is capabilities. Do we have the capabilities in-house to do so, to get where we want to be in the time that we need to be able to both capitalize on this amazing emerging science that's telling us to go in a certain direction, or, of course, to also stay competitive, which ultimately means bringing the best solutions to patients. So if we don't have, and many times we don't have the time, and companies don't have the time, don't have the expertise, and don't have the capabilities or the capacity, because they decide to go into a new direction and things need to move fast. And that's, of course, where the different forms of partnering step into the picture. And then it depends on what you're looking at, whether collaborations might be the best option. For example, to build a long-term pipeline, you might want to work with multiple collaborators. If you want to, as a company, make a big leap into a totally new area, including maybe a commercial portfolio, maybe a commercial team, so a sales force, then maybe an acquisition would be the best.
Looking at how investors look at things, they're usually quite good at sniffing out companies that are most likely to strike a partnership deal. Which features do you think usually give that competitive edge, let's say, to a company? I'm thinking about what you said about sniffing around and finding, we can only do so much. We do appreciate that companies step up and tell us and can convince us why they have the best idea in the world. So clarity of that message, clarity of why the science and innovation is compelling, why there are reasons to believe. That's the first step. And then we might have 10 minutes to hear you out, or we might have 2 hours, and we might have a million questions before we actually believe you. So I would ask for the patience there to just go through that. But once that kind of clarity of the science and the rationale and the story and the competitiveness is there, as well as this openness, a positive bias to have an open and honest conversation about collaboration options and really getting deep into what the opportunities are, that gets us both far along the way. So it's fair to say that communication is a very key part of partnering, for sure, in these environments.
It is, and I also worked in academia, and it is hard sometimes to step out of that space of world expertise and then explain to someone who is not an expert in the field why this is an opportunity that should not be missed. And it usually does help to have a sparring partner, a coach, external advice to get that the story in a succinct and clear way down.
Well, last question: what advice would you give to other companies that are looking to partner with Novo Nordisk?
Come find us. Come find us, and of course the main partnering conferences around the world. But also come find us on our website. We do answer. I can almost promise we do answer to requests as well, and through email, through the partnering website and the portal that we have.
Well, thank you so much, Anna, for answering these questions. These very interesting conversation about partnerships within life science and with big pharma, and we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.